What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is the first video in the series as we're fixing up this 80 series Landcruiser. We're gonna pull that downpipe off the exhaust manifold. I'm gonna weld in some new flex pipes, fix this exhaust leak, and get it nice and quiet. We got the truck up on jack stands. Got another jack supporting, got some tires under there just for some safety. These jacks should be plenty strong, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. The wheels off, it's all nice and wide open. We should be able to get in here and get some work done. These nuts up here on the manifold I'm a little worried about. I got a few tools that I think are really gonna help, so let's get right to it. All right, I got a breaker bar and went ahead and tested to see how these nuts are gonna come off, or if they were or if they weren't. This one right here broke loose fairly easy, as well as this one. This one's a little tight, so I'm gonna have to do some heat on that. The one up here that you can't really see, somebody, I guess when they pulled this exhaust off before, the stud, they pulled the stud out and replaced it with a bolt. That bolt also feels a little stuck. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna put some heat on the nuts that are stuck, and hopefully they just come right out. Usually when you think about adding some heat to a nut or something like that, you think of a torch. This is a thing called a mini inductor. Went ahead and brought this home from work. I've used this thing a ton on exhaust work and just rusty bolts in general. It's all honestly almost like magic. You basically plug it into an extension cord. This little coil kind of surrounds the nut. You press the button and it actually heats the nut up. You can get them red hot within like 30 seconds or so. No excess heat, no worrying about burning things around, and really isolates where you're putting the heat on the vehicle. I don't really know exactly how expensive these things are. I don't think they're too expensive these days. Definitely a great investment, so we'll see how it works out. As you can see, the heat didn't really work. I got it super hot and it didn't seem to help. I think that thing was just kind of rusted beyond saving. Also, the way these pinch nuts are set up from Toyota, I've actually dealt with them in the past. They tend to gall up on the studs on the way off, and it's just like no way to get around it. I was kind of expecting this. I think I'll just have to end up, once I get this pipe off, I'll probably have to just weld a nut to that stud, and maybe the good extreme heat from the welding will let me just kind of back that stud right out, and I'll just be able to replace it with another stud or possibly a bolt. All right, so one of the four nuts came off. One of them backed off almost all the way like I was talking about, and then galled up and broke off the end of the stud. But that's all right. Once we get this pipe out of the way, I don't think it's going to be too hard to weld some nuts on there and get the remainder of the junk out of the way. All right, so we got our pipe out. The V-band clamp came off nice and easy. Thankfully I can even reuse it. Just unplug the O2 sensor. You can see where it's been leaking all right here. As far as these studs go, I do have decent access to them right here. I may be able to work with them like this, and I'm also debating if I should just go ahead and pull these exhaust manifolds so I can work with them on a bench, which would be way easier. That being said, hopefully the studs on the motor will let the nuts come off easy, but like I mentioned before in the other video, the valve cover gasket has been leaking, and all of those nuts have been pretty oil soaked, so I'm hoping that that means minimal rust, and they'll just kind of come right off. All right guys, great news. All of these exhaust manifold nuts broke loose nice and easy, and I think they're all just gonna run right out. There was one that was a little stuck. I just took the inductor, heated up, and then it started coming right off. So we're just gonna go ahead and completely pull these manifolds out of here. It'll be much easier to work with them on the bench instead of trying to extract these studs in the vehicle. So we got it here in the garage. We got it on the workbench where we can work with it. This one that galled up and then ended up breaking at the end, there's actually enough good threads and enough good stud there that we're not gonna have to pull that one out. As you can see, there's a good bit of stud still sticking through, and that's plenty for a nut. So we're not gonna have to mess with that one. We'll just have to extract two studs. So the goal here is we're gonna take a nut, set it over our stud. We're gonna weld a pull in here between the heat, getting it super red hot, and of course now having a nice nut to be able to back it off. The stud should, in theory, come right out of our manifold here. So unfortunately, the welding the nut trick did not work. These things are super stuck. I went ahead and drilled it out. It's not quite the size it needs to be. I think I'm gonna run to the store, get the correct drill bit and a tap, and hopefully be able to tap that hole. There's really not room to put a nut on the backside with the way it's shaped. This side I started to drill out, and my initial pilot drill bit actually broke. And if you guys have ever tried to drill through a broken drill bit that's already in a hole, it is nearly impossible, and it just takes forever. You end up burning up drill bits. It looks like on eBay they got some OEM exhaust manifolds. 173 is not too bad. I have reached out to a few local guys and another guy I know, see if maybe they have some laying around. Hopefully your local guy comes through, but if not, I think I'm just going to go ahead and pick this up on eBay just to avoid the headache of dealing with these studs. Well, the good news is, because each manifold has one good stud, I can still use them to mock up when I'm doing this part of the exhaust. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out these flex pipes that are already in here. And once those are all cut out, I can bolt these up to the manifolds in the truck with just that single nut on each of them. It'll hold them in place. Put that V-band clamp on there, and then I can hold up my new flex pipes, get them in place and tack it up, and then bring it in here and weld it up. And it'll be all ready for the new manifolds when they come in. Alrighty guys, as you saw, we got our brand new exhaust manifold gaskets in. All of those nuts are torqued to 29 foot-pounds, which is the spec. We put our downpipes on, we just kind of finger tightened them up just so they were kind of in place. What I did is I slid the flex pipes on the downpipes up here first, and then I kind of bent and manipulated them until I could slide them on to our rest of our downpipe. Then I went ahead and reconnected our V-band clamp there in the back. So now all that's left to do is we're gonna get the welder out here and we're gonna tack this up, maybe even just lay a couple beads just so we know it's not gonna shift on me. Tack it up, and then I'm gonna pull this completely out of the truck and then go on the bench and finish welding it up. Alrighty guys, we got it all final welded in. I actually got a new welder since you guys have been seeing me build those trailers, and I'm still getting a little used to it. Also partly I don't really have much experience welding exhaust. So you can see this side looks like it kind of didn't really get hot enough a little bit. It was really tricky to get down in that little bit. And then when I moved to this side, I actually cranked up the heat a little bit and started moving faster, and it started looking a lot better. So hopefully these things will hold up, and hopefully I don't have any pinholes or leaks. Surely I'll end up figuring it out once I start seeing black soot leaking, but I think for now these are going to work out pretty good. And like I said before, this is going to be a temporary fix hopefully, and in the future I got something cool coming for this cruiser, and none of this stuff will be a problem anymore. Alrighty guys, we got it all bolted back in. Getting those gaskets on those flanges up there were a little tricky because the kind of the inside on the pipe is actually on the top one. So I kind of had to like take a screwdriver, and because these are kind of spring loaded from the flex pipes, pry it down to get enough of a gap, slip them in there, and then let it kind of spring itself back up while making sure those were in the correct spot. But after that, I got those tightened up with some new nuts. Our V-band clamp was leaking after I first put it back together. I found a gasket from AutoZone, and I ended up putting the gasket there in some exhaust putty, let it cure overnight, and now that seems nice and tight. I did make some adjustments to the system. This was all smashed flat, and this was actually up and hitting the frame. So I took a socket and an extension, kind of bent our hanger here a little bit and made some tweaks, and the rest of the system looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and start it up and check for leaks again. I'll just like kind of show you guys how it sounds with this exhaust. Like I mentioned before, this is an aftermarket exhaust, so it is a little louder than factory. We'll go ahead and start it up. What you hear there is the power steering. Power steering fluid may be a little low or aerated. I got to look into that. That's kind of that noise you hear. No more leaks right here. No more leaks right here. And as you can hear, all the exhaust coming out the back here. It has a pretty good tone to it. I think it will be a little louder once you step on it, but it's not obnoxious or anything. So pretty happy with how that turned out. Alright guys, so that's about it for fixing the exhaust on the 80. I think next video we're going to work on doing those rear wheel bearings, and I think the brakes and stuff like that I'll kind of put into a separate video when I do the front. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Give me any feedback on what you think, or any future projects or ideas you have in mind for the Landcruiser. Love to hear your suggestions, and we'll see you next time.